When it comes to alfalfa, there's a lot going on right now. In some parts of the country, guys are saying, man, I might get an extra cutting this year. It's fantastic. In other areas, the alfalfa stands may really be suffering from drought or other conditions. We're going to talk about some considerations here in the later part of the summer and into the fall for your alfalfa stand.
All right, the first thing is we get lots of questions all the time about weed control. And yes, there are some products that are really pretty harsh. I think about Velpar and Metribuzin that you can use when that alfalfa goes dormant. But what I always tell guys is if your stand is that bad, you have so many dandelions out there or so much quackgrass or something like that, it might be just time to rip that stand up. So I'm a pretty big believer in, I'm going to pull the stand out a little earlier rather than later. That's one of the things that I'm going to look at first. Is the stand too far gone? Is it not worth saving anymore? Okay, so let's just step back a second and say, all right, my stand is worth saving. What do I need to do to get that ready to go for winter so I get the best winter survivability?
One of the things people take for granted in alfalfa is fertility. Now, I know there's some high management alfalfa farms that do a great job with fertility. There's also some livestock operations that are putting a lot of manure on the alfalfa, which is working great. But then there are guys that are just raising alfalfa for cash that, you know what, fertility may be lacking in some cases. The only way to find out is to get out and do some soil sampling. We were talking about a fall soil sampling program for the whole farm. For alfalfa fields, it's an absolute must. If you're getting a decent amount of tonnage off that ground, you're pulling a lot of fertility out. You look at the fertilizer removal app, the Ag PhD fertilizer removal app, and you look at alfalfa and just type in what you're getting. Maybe you're getting 4 ton. Well, you type that in and look at the amount of potassium that you're pulling out of the soil. It's a huge amount. And I don't know many people that are putting that much back out into the field every season. So make sure you're doing some good soil testing and then fertilizing accordingly if you want to keep that stand going.
Well, in addition to that, it's pulling some plant tissue samples. And I just want to remind you, sulfate's leachable, boron's leachable. In other words, if you have had decent rain this year, chances are very, very, very high that you're going to need more sulfate and more boron going into next year. Sure, things like phosphorus and potassium don't leach easily unless you have sandy soil, but even there, you may consider putting more out there because like Darren said, when you're taking all that mass off the soil, you are taking away so much potassium and phosphorus and all these nutrients that are gone from your field forever. So look hard at the fertility. In addition to that, make sure going into the fall you have good insect control, that you're paying attention to disease. You can use a product like Headline, for example, that does have plant health benefits, and they have shown better winter survivability when treating with Headline in the fall. So just some of these things you may consider trying for your farm so you get better winter survivability and have a better stand the next year or two.
The other thing with winter survival is you really have to consider how much summer is left in your area and time out when that last cutting is going to be. If you're really pushing it for moisture, unless you desperately need that hay, you may want to leave it just so you have some growth out there going into the winter.
All right, let's talk about stands too far gone. I want to take it out and plant another crop next year. How do I control that, and when should I control that? We've had a lot of people say, well, you know what, I'm going to leave it until spring, get another cutting. We don't typically suggest that. We'd rather see you get it under control this fall, start fresh next spring. So if you want to kill your alfalfa, if it's not Roundup Ready alfalfa, Roundup is a good choice. Otherwise, you're probably looking at something like 2,4-D or dicamba. Either way, we'd really like you to spray that alfalfa stand well before you have your first hard-killing frost. Usually 2 weeks before your first hard-killing frost. If you can do that, you'll get the best overall kill on that alfalfa. And then if you do have that herbicide out this fall, hopefully winter will actually kill the rest of the plants if you haven't completely done it with the herbicide, but use a good strong rate of herbicide well before your first hard-killing frost.
I like to see at least 2 pounds of Roundup being used. That'd be a half a gallon of 4-pound material or 44 ounces of the 6-pound material
at a minimum,
if you want to get it done, because I see too many guys trying to skimp on those rates and then they have problems next year.
Once again, it's pretty easy to neglect a perennial crop, but there are so many things that you can do if you want to have better alfalfa in future years. And like we said, if you need to get that alfalfa stand under control before you raise another crop next year, we would encourage you to do it this fall rather than waiting until spring.
One other thing you don't want to wait until spring for is controlling our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed coming up next.